What is up, motherfuckers? It's your host, Shaun here. How are y'all? Hope you're doing well this evening. I'd like to read yous a little handwritten note that I got from some rad dudes across the pond. Hi Shaun, mate, your artwork is the dog's bollocks. It's truly amazing. We are going to plug you on the show. If you have any topics you would like us to cover, let us know. If you have experienced anything odd personally, even better. Thanks for the support, Tom and Rob. Robots for Eyes. That was the first letter I got from Tom and Rob back in the day when I hit them up through my business Dead Glass Design. Then just today I got home and had a rad surprise of a package from Tom and Rob from Robots for Eyes, all the way over in England. Yo Shaun and Jack, cheers for the model robot. We have no art skills whatsoever, so here's a couple of t-shirts and the only 2 Robots for Eyes caps on Earth. The caps make you look like a spastic child licking a window on a retard bus. Swapcast is a top idea. We'll get one sorted. Carousel sniper victim is the dog's bollocks. Love it, Tom and Rob. No, Tom and Rob. You are the dog's bollocks. You two are the most valuable players. You two do top shelf podcasting. If you haven't heard Robots for Eyes, go check them out. They're a bunch of sick cunts. Love them. Love what they do. Hope you enjoy the little model I made for you. It's a little logo podcast robot dude. It should be there any time soon. Well, actually, no, it probably won't, 'cause I only posted it like a week ago because I had to wait for the acrylic to dry, but it'll be there soon, so just let me know when it gets there. Other than that, Rob Bentz on Reddit. Cheers, yo. Oh, and also, shout out to that crazily over-lettuced Big Mac in the unofficial El Pottle page now. That will make sense to some of yous. Hit me up if it does. I can't remember what your name was, man, but that burger was some fucking bullshit, yo. Alright. On with some Broadmoor.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
You're listening to Carousel Sniper Victim, a Dead Glass Design production, with your host, Shaun Jeffery.
Every Monday morning at 10 a.m, a banshee-like wail can be heard crying out over the quiet countryside of Berkshire, England. For a full 2 minutes, the ear-splitting sound rings out like a wartime air raid siren. The sirens are in the Berkshire towns of Camberley, Bracknell, Bagshot, Wokingham and the nearby village of Crowthorne, all of them connected by a telephone network. What's the reason for this ear-splitting siren noise, you might ask? The reason is the alarms must be tested. These alarms need to be tested once a week, in case they are needed for real. They are used to alert the nearby residents in the event there is an escapee from the Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital, formerly the Broadmoor Criminal Lunatic Asylum. Broadmoor is a facility that houses the most dangerous mentally ill patients in the United Kingdom, and has done so for more than 150 years. If somehow a patient does manage to escape, the sirens sound for 20 minutes. Nearby schools, such as Wellington College, have to keep their pupils inside until it is safe for parents to collect them. A cordon is thrown around Crowthorne and all cars are checked at police roadblocks. Not until a single tone all clear sounds can normal life resume. This is no ordinary alarm, and there are no ordinary patients imprisoned within Broadmoor. The alarm system was installed after the escape of child murderer John Straffen in 1952. It was the previous summer, the summer of 1951, when then serial killer John Straffen murdered 2 young girls in Bath. He was arrested, and it became clear to authorities that he was mentally disturbed. He was found not fit to plea, and was sent to Broadmoor Hospital to serve his sentence. In April the following year, Straffen managed to escape by jumping onto a shed roof and over a 10-foot tall wall. Wearing civilian clothes underneath his work outfit, he removed his outer layer and walked away from the building undetected. After speaking casually with neighbours about the unfortunate location of their homes and the likelihood of patients escaping Broadmoor, Straffen fell upon a young girl named Linda Bower. The 5-year-old girl was riding her bike around the village when she encountered Mr. Straffen, and within half an hour, she was dead. After leaving her body, Straffen once again began talking to the residents of Crowthorne, including one lady who he persuaded to drive him to the bus stop. When the car approached the bus stop, Straffen noticed what he thought to be a policeman close by. He demanded the car be stopped and he exited the vehicle and ran away. The concerned driver approached the uniformed men, who were in fact Broadmoor nurses, and informed them of her passenger's odd behaviour. Straffen was apprehended within minutes and taken back to Broadmoor Hospital. The body of Linda Bower was found at dawn the following day, and on hearing of the child killer's escape, the police immediately went to Broadmoor to interview Straffen. The patient insisted he was innocent of the crime, pleading, quote,
"I did not kill the little girl on the bicycle."
This was his undoing. No one had been made aware of any of the details of the crime yet. He was charged with Linda's murder on May 1st, and whilst it was determined he should be in a psychiatric hospital, it was also deemed too dangerous to send him back to a place that could not securely detain him. Therefore, Straffen was remanded to Brixton Prison, where he served out his sentence. Since then, the only major incident has been the escape of the child rapist James Saunders, nicknamed the Wolfman. Saunders went on the run after sawing through a 1-inch thick steel bar and squeezing out of a shower room on the 3rd floor. He was recaptured only 2 days later, though. More recently, Broadmoor has experienced a different kind of breakout: the release of files dating back a century and more, which are being made available to the public for the first time. These documents include a particularly interesting file on a Broadmoor resident named Thomas Wayne Cutbush, a leading suspect in the Jack the Ripper case and a notorious murderer of women. Cutbush was pronounced insane and died in Broadmoor in 1903. From the day of his arrest, the Ripper murders stopped entirely. Broadmoor Hospital was built to a design by Sir Joshua Jebb, an officer of the Corps of Royal Engineers, and covered 53,000 acres or 210,000 square metres within its secure perimeter, and Cutbush wasn't the only notable resident of Broadmoor. The hospital has had a wide variety of guests over the 150-year period it has operated. The first patient to attend Broadmoor was a female admitted for infanticide on the 27th of May 1863. Notes described her as being, quote, feeble-minded. It has been suggested by an analysis of notes that she was most likely also suffering from congenital syphilis. The first male patients arrived on the 27th of February, 1864. When Broadmoor was first constructed, it was the first custom-built asylum to house criminal lunatics. The idea was triggered by the case of James Hadfield, an ex-soldier who, in the year 1800, while watching a play at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, levelled his pistol at King George III and fired. He missed, but his subsequent acquittal by reason of insanity caused such public uproar that Parliament speedily passed the Criminal Lunatics Act to provide for the indefinite detention of the insane, and with this ruling, a new era in the treatment of the criminally insane was born. Among the first inmates were 2 would-be assassins of Queen Victoria. Edward Oxford was 18 and serving beer in a pub when something told him to shoot the Queen and Prince Albert as they rode out of Constitution Hill. Both bullets missed, and they were later found to be blanks anyway. Oxford was acquitted by reason of insanity, and after serving time in an asylum, was moved to Broadmoor. He was later offered a discharge in 1867 if he left the country. He emigrated to Australia and made a living as a house painter, dying in the year 1900. Roderick Maclean, an unemployed London clerk, was also judged insane, after he also tried to assassinate the Queen in 1882, as she left the Windsor train station, firing a revolver at her point blank, but he missed, and before he could fire again, 2 Eton schoolboys knocked him off balance with their umbrellas. Maclean died in Broadmoor 40 years later. Broadmoor is one of 3 maximum security psychiatric hospitals in the UK, the others being Ashworth and Rampton. But Broadmoor has always seemed to receive the most interesting cases. Take the particularly fascinating case of Graham Young, a serial killer who poisoned his stepmother and 2 work colleagues. Born in Neasden in 1947, he developed a fascination with poison and their effect on the human body, and started testing them out on his family from the age of 14. He escaped suspicion because he frequently poisoned himself, forgetting which food he had laced with poison. Young went to see a psychiatrist who contacted the police. He was sentenced to 15 years in Broadmoor, which he spent in its well-stocked library, continuing his research and using fellow inmates as guinea pigs, one time poisoning the tea service cart, resulting in the severe poisoning of over 20 inmates. Despite this, he was eventually released, and once out, Young joined a photographic supply store in Bovingdon, Hertfordshire, offering to make the tea. He poisoned about 70 people over the next few months, none of them fatally at first, while taking meticulous notes on the doses and their effects, and on which of his workmates he was eventually going to kill. After 2 men, Bob Engle and Fred Biggs, died in agony, an investigation began into the so-called Bovingdon bug. Young helpfully confided in the police his interests in poison, and had they by chance thought of thallium? His flat was searched. Quantities of thallium, antimonium and acinetine were found, together with the incriminating notebook of victims. The teacup murderer, as he was called, was sentenced to life and died aged 42 in his prison cell of a heart attack. The serial killer Kenneth Eskrin, a sexual psychopath known as the Stockwell Strangler, has been in Broadmoor since 1988, convicted of 7 murders and believed to be guilty of 4 more. Abandoned by his parents at a young age, he went through care homes and special schools before embarking on a successful career as a house burglar. In 1987, he began killing his victims, kneeling on their chests, then placing his left hand over their mouths while using his right hand to grip their throats and strangle them. 4 of them were sexually assaulted before or after death. He was caught after a victim he was throttling managed to press an alarm button. He was given a minimum jail term of 40 years. Later, he was judged to have a mental age of 7, and to be sufficiently insane to be transferred to Broadmoor, where he will stay. Unusually, several of Broadmoor's most violent murderers have bonded together, perhaps for protection or merely to escape their solitary existence. The serial killer Kenneth Eskrin, that we just mentioned, actually came to the rescue of Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, who is also a patient at Broadmoor, when a fellow inmate tried to throttle Sutcliffe with a cable from a pair of stereo headphones. Despite the staff at Broadmoor receiving additional training and the facility's exceptional precautions when dealing with patients, madmen still find ways of hurting themselves or others. Daniel Gonzalez, 26, who arrived at Broadmoor after a homicidal spree over 3 days in 2004, in which he stabbed to death 4 people and tried to kill 2 others with a carving knife, will not be quickly forgotten. Regarded as one of Broadmoor's most dangerous patients, Gonzalez told the police he wanted to be like the character Freddy Krueger from the horror film Nightmare on Elm Street, and kill as many people as possible. A psychiatric consultant described him as a schizophrenic capable of, quote, extreme, unprovoked and unpremeditated violence. Gonzalez was placed on 24-hour observation by nursing staff, with a minimum of 2 people sitting within arm's length of him. Unable to kill others, he turned his rage upon himself.
On 3 occasions, in a clear attempt at suicide, he bit himself with such ferocity he nearly severed his arteries. Finally, last year, he succeeded. He was found by Broadmoor staff lying dead in a pool of blood, having used a broken CD to cut his wrists. Despite the many infamous patients held at the Broadmoor Hospital in recent times, the Crays, Ian Brady, the Yorkshire Ripper, perhaps the most notorious is one who few of Broadmoor's residents ever saw, the original Hannibal Lecter. Robert Maudsley was in Broadmoor for 3 years in the 70s. Born in 1953, he was the son of a Liverpool lorry driver who beat him mercilessly whenever he came home from the orphanage which had taken him into its care. He drifted through foster homes and psychiatric hospitals. One afternoon, Maudsley was picked up by a labourer who showed him pictures of abused boys. Maudsley snapped and garroted him to death. He was sent to Broadmoor with a new nickname, Blue, the colour of the labourer's face as he was slowly choked to death. His next and most lasting nickname was Spoons. In 1977, Maudsley and another psychopath took a third patient, a pedophile, hostage, and barricaded themselves into a cell with him. The pedophile was tortured for 9 hours before Maudsley killed him and held up his body so that the staff could see it through the spy hatch. When the staff were let in, they found that the man's skull had been cracked open like a boiled egg. Part of the brain was missing and a spoon was hanging out of the cranium. Despite the gruesomeness and clearly insane nature of the crime, Maudsley was deemed fit to stand trial. Despite his pleas to be sent back to Broadmoor, he was committed to Wakefield Prison. After several more killings, Maudsley now lives in solitary confinement in a 2-cell glass cage, very like the one pictured in The Silence of the Lambs. His furniture is made of compressed cardboard, and his 1 daily hour of exercise, 6 prison officers escort him. Only a small proportion of Broadmoor's residents are what some might class as thugs and murderers, though. One of the most famous academic patients was Dr. William Chester Minor, an American surgeon immortalised in the book The Surgeon of Crowthorne. After suffering paranoid delusions brought on by his terrible experiences in the American Civil War, Dr. Minor produced a revolver and, for no reason whatsoever, shot dead a boiler stoker from the Red Lion Brewery in London. Dr. Minor remained in Broadmoor for 38 years, building up a library from which he volunteered thousands of citations for words which now appear in the Oxford English Dictionary. Broadmoor, with its dark red bricks, its towers, heavily barred windows, gaunt cell blocks and long corridors, was an intimidating place. But Dr. Minor, engaged so readily in his work, seemed hardly even to notice. So industrious was he that the editor of the Oxford English Dictionary, James Murray, arrived in person to visit him and they became firm friends. Although firm friends, the editor, Murray, was not present when Dr. Minor, demented by sexual longings, sawed off his penis with a penknife. He tied a ligature of string over the stump and threw the rest of the offending organ into the fire. In a steady voice, he called for the medical officer, and survived. As crazy as it sounds, or maybe not, as this is technically a hospital for the criminally insane, this episode of self-mutilation of the patient's genitals isn't an isolated incident. Quoting an article from the Mirror published in April, a killer at top security Broadmoor Hospital died after ramming the metal arm of a pair of spectacles down his penis in a bid to leave his secure ward. Christopher Brand, who was jailed for life in 1980 for drowning another convict in a bath, had previously inserted razor blades into his rectum, a coroner was told. The patient, who was detained at Broadmoor in 2012, carried out the deliberate act of self-harm in order to temporarily leave his secure ward. Coroner Peter Bedford heard how Brand had repeatedly stuffed his penis with his own spectacles in an act known as sounding. Nursing staff had taken him back and forth to nearby Frimley Park Hospital in Surrey for surgery because of the repeated bizarre self-harm to his genitals. The inquest also heard how the patient had on previous occasions inserted 4 razor blades into his rectum in 1992. On the 20th of March 2013, Brand put one of the arms of a pair of glasses down his urethra. Had it removed the next day, then he repeated the act within 2 weeks. He was taken to hospital again on April 4th to have surgery for the object to be removed again. He was taken to Frimley Park on June 29th, 2013, having repeated the strange procedure. An operation to remove the arm of the glasses was unsuccessful and a catheter was inserted. However, Brand ripped half of it off and the remainder fell out. After the failed operation, Brand was given a cocktail of drugs. The 53-year-old was then found unresponsive in his room hours after being readmitted to Broadmoor, despite being on constant supervision throughout the night. Nursing staff at Broadmoor insisted at the inquest that they had no concerns over Brand's welfare when he was readmitted. That was despite him being very drowsy throughout his transit from Frimley Park Hospital back to Broadmoor. On the evening of the 30th of June, he was given the painkiller, tramadol, pregbalin, used to treat anxiety, and the sleeping drug, zopiclone. Brand demanded to be given Oromorph, a liquid form of the painkiller morphine, within a few minutes of the other drugs after claiming that they had not worked. An hour later, he was given a 10mg dosage of Oromorph. The maximum dose is 20mg. The coroner heard that he refused to sign the release form allowing him to be discharged, complaining, quote, "I don't want to do anything, I just want to get out." And staff had to sign him out instead. Once back at Broadmoor, Brand was placed into a secured, isolated bedroom. He was observed throughout the night, and nurses who kept watch on him reported seeing him move and could hear him snoring. Broadmoor staff said they did not clinically observe him and take his blood pressure and heart rate during the night, as they did not have any concerns about his overall condition. A healthcare assistant at Broadmoor, assigned to observe Brand, said, "When he came to the ward, he looked sleepy and tired, but he was standing and walking. He was talking and wasn't slurring. I wouldn't know if he was on any medication." Hospital staff tried to resuscitate Brand until paramedics arrived to take over, but they were unable to revive him and declared him dead. Police officers sent to investigate Brand's death found an empty cup containing the residue of a pink liquid in Brand's room. Tests later showed it was diazepam, an antidepressant that he had not been prescribed. To say that Broadmoor sounds like a dark place would obviously be an understatement. Not only are the people confined there dealing with their own personal demons, they are often exposed to demons of a very real nature too. People from the outside world. People in a position of power. People that they, as patients, should be able to trust. These people have been some of the worst demons of all. Since the death of Jimmy Savile in October 2011, over 500 reports have surfaced of sexual abuse and molestation of girls, primarily in the age group between 13 to 15 years of age. Savile earned the trust of the British public through his role at the BBC, first on his show Jim'll Fix It, and then on Top of the Pops in the 1970s. He quickly became a household name, but it is now known that during his time at the BBC, he systematically molested and raped multitudes of teenage girls in his changing rooms. As his celebrity status grew, Savile gained access to hospitals and children's homes alike, in a bid to, quote, entertain those who were vulnerable and suffering. One of the hospitals which Savile frequently attended was Broadmoor. He was first invited onto the premises in the late 1960s by a hospital charity to organise entertainment for both the staff and patients at the hospital. Since then, he often visited the patients, offering entertainment and support to those in need. During this time, Savile was given unlimited access to the hospital, and even had his own set of keys to the building. In 1971, Savile brought a 14-year-old girl into the hospital to sing for the patients. At the time, this was not questioned, but experts are now asking how a child of such a young age was allowed into the high-security psychiatric facility. Savile was renowned across the country as a ladies' man, and it was no secret in the BBC that he kissed most women on the lips whom he greeted. The staff at Broadmoor noted his, quote, sleazy behaviour among them and the patients, but no action was taken, just as it wasn't within the BBC. Even Edwina Curry noted in her memo, quote, "You might have warned me of this penchant for kissing ladies full on the mouth." During the 1990s, 3 women wrote to the Patients' Council, informing them that they had been sexually abused at the hands of Savile whilst in Broadmoor. To date, there are 16 separate claims of sexual abuse in Broadmoor at the hands of Jimmy Savile, all of whom were vulnerable women who were too afraid to speak out whilst he was alive. A joint investigation is now underway between the Department of Health and the Board of West London Mental Health to find out exactly what occurred at Broadmoor and how such a dangerously manipulative and abusive man was allowed to run the high-security psychiatric facility. The National Health Service, the NHS, is now in control of Broadmoor Hospital and is keen to demonstrate that it is a high-security psychiatric hospital, not a prison. It now holds approximately 230 male patients, all of whom are detained under the Mental Health Act. Broadmoor is split into two main sections, one half for the patients who are diagnosed with a personality disorder, and the other half for all other mental illnesses. The Care Quality Commission pays frequent unexpected visits to the hospital to ensure that patients' treatment, security and care is to the highest possible standard. According to the Broadmoor Visitors Leaflet, quote, "A multidisciplinary clinical team cares for each patient so that all aspects of their needs can be considered in their treatment and recovery. Wards also have security liaison nurses who help ensure patients and staff are in a safe environment." For more than 150 years, the walls of Broadmoor have heard an untold amount of human suffering. And now, how much longer the facility will be in operation is uncertain. The Victorian-era buildings are outdated and newer facilities are being constructed. There is also talk of the Broadmoor Hospital and surrounding gardens being repurposed as a hotel. Won't that be a lovely experience? I'm sure a beautiful place to stay. Definitely not a building filled with the echoes of tortured human souls. I'm sure we won't be covering something out of that hotel in a future episode.
The Broadmoor Hotel. Soft beds, buffet breakfasts, and all the mental anguish you'll ever need.
Sawing your own penis off, eh? The dude was a genius, contributed so much to the Oxford English Dictionary, but just obviously had some inner demons, some fucking pretty crazy shit. We didn't really go into like the Yorkshire Ripper and like Charles Bronson and the whole Jimmy Savile too much, because didn't know how much we're going to cover in the breakdown. But also, if you really want to know about Jimmy Savile, go check out Robots for Eyes podcast about Jimmy Savile. That's some crazy shit. So they've done an episode. It's their home turf. I won't step on it. But yeah, thanks for listening, yo. We'll catch you next time. Peace. Just kidding. I'm back again. I was going to be like, boom, and come in with this fucking hardcore song by Jack's band, the Arcadian. So this song that you hear in a second, Jack's the drummer. It's the Arcadian. Check him out. Prepare your ears or your car stereo. 3, 2, 1, engage.